right, are we ready to get this party started?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, our next guest is the last surviving cast member of the iconic TV series Gilligan's Island. Oh my gosh, she played the seductive and beautiful Ginger Grant.
For 3 seasons, Gilligan's Island was America's happy place, a fantasy of a makeshift family where every problem was solved in 30 minutes. The skipper, the millionaire, the movie star, they became our friends. As the years passed, they left us one by one until only the movie star remained. Louise was the last survivor, but her final years were no victory lap. She was living a secret tragedy, fighting a 50-year war against the show's legacy. A battle that has left her the last one standing, living a quiet and fiercely private life, forever separated from the legacy she fought so hard to escape. To understand the shocking truth of her solitary end, we must first look back into the ambitious dreams she had before she was ever shipwrecked. The moment Louise stepped onto the set of Gilligan's Island, she believed she was securing her future as a Hollywood powerhouse. Instead, she was lighting the fuse on a ticking time bomb that would define the rest of her life. Imagine the scene in 1965. On a bustling Hollywood soundstage designed to look like a tropical paradise, Bob Denver trips over a coconut as the crew erupts in laughter. Alan Hale Jr. booms a friendly command, and the set buzzes with the cheerful, chaotic energy of a family at play. But in a quiet corner, sitting in her director's chair in a shimmering evening gown, one person is not laughing. Louise is worlds away, lost in the pages of a Dostoevsky novel. This small, quiet act of rebellion was the first sign of the secret crisis brewing behind the scenes of America's favorite show. While the world saw a perfect TV family, she felt like a prisoner of war. To understand this deep internal conflict, one has to understand that Louise was never meant to be a sitcom star. Her artistic code was forged in the most revered acting school in America, the legendary Actors Studio. This wasn't a place for aspiring starlets. It was a creative crucible where director Lee Strasberg taught the method, a philosophy that demanded actors draw on their own deep emotional truths to live a part, not just pretend. Her classmates were the titans of this new wave of raw, authentic acting: Paul Newman, Marlon Brando, and Shelley Winters. She was trained to find the grit, the pain, and the humanity in her characters. For her, acting was a sacred, almost spiritual craft. This psychological root, this belief in her own artistic integrity, is the key to her entire story. It was the reason she felt her experience on the island was a daily intellectual torment. This wasn't just a matter of ego, she had the resume to back it up. Before she ever saw a script for Gilligan's Island, she had conquered Broadway, earning rave reviews in the hit musical Lil Abner. A year later, she held her own against veteran actors like Robert Ryan in the gritty film drama God's Little Acre, a role that won her a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. These achievements weren't just resume points. They were the fuel for her ambition, proof that she was on the path to greatness. But each win also raised the stakes of her internal crisis, making the future she was heading toward even more unbearable. The success of Gilligan's Island became a ticking time bomb. With every laugh track, the shadow of Ginger Grant grew longer, threatening to consume the serious artist she had fought so hard to become. The decision to take the role was a gamble she thought she could control. Her agent allegedly convinced her that the show's massive exposure would make her an undeniable star, giving her the leverage she needed to finally command the serious film roles she craved. It was a Faustian bargain. For a moment, it seemed to work. She became one of the most famous women in America. But while the world cheered for their favorite movie star, Louise was privately planning her escape. The success wasn't a victory, it was the closing of a trap. It gave her everything she thought she wanted: fame, money, recognition, but it also gave her more to lose, making her secret desire to break free even more dangerous to her career. The bomb was ticking, and the moment the show ended, it was set to explode. At the absolute peak of the show's fame, while her castmates planned for a long and happy future together, Louise made a secret, life-altering decision that would start a 50-year war against her own legacy. By 1966, Gilligan's Island was a cultural juggernaut. It was a fixture in the top 20 of the Nielsen ratings, a cornerstone of American pop culture. Ginger Grant was an international icon of Hollywood glamour, her face on lunchboxes, dolls, and in magazines. Tina Louise had achieved a level of fame most actors only dream of, but it came at a catastrophic price she was no longer willing to pay. She felt her artistic credibility evaporating with every silly plotline and every breathy line of dialogue. She was a punchline, not a performer. Adding insult to injury, she discovered that she and Dawn Wells, the wholesome girl next door Mary Ann, were being paid less than their male co-stars. The injustice, coupled with her artistic frustration, solidified her resolve. The war was about to begin. The moment the show was unexpectedly canceled in 1967, she executed her shocking plan. While her castmates looked for ways to keep the magic alive, Tina Louise declared a secret, unilateral war on Ginger Grant. The public wouldn't find out the full extent of it for years, but her decision was immediate and absolute. When the network produced the first reunion movie in 1978, Rescue from Gilligan's Island, she flatly refused to participate. Her role was recast with actress Judith Baldwin. When they made a second reunion, The Castaways on Gilligan's Island, she refused again. And when a third was made, The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island, she once more refused. She was the only member of the original cast to never return to the island. Not for reunions, not for the 2 animated series that followed, not for cast appearances on talk shows. For 5 decades, her no was final. This wasn't just about turning down a few nostalgic TV movies. It was a stunning and almost unprecedented act of professional defiance. She was severing all ties with the very role that had made her a global icon, a decision that baffled network executives, fans, and most of all, her own castmates. Dawn Wells, Bob Denver, and the others embraced their characters for the rest of their lives. They attended fan conventions, signed autographs, and spoke fondly of their time on the island, grateful for the joy they had brought to the world. They saw Tina's refusal as a form of betrayal, a rejection of the family they had all created together. This decision created a permanent, painful rift, casting her as the perpetual outsider from the group she could never truly escape. Years later, show creator Sherwood Schwartz wrote that he was mystified by her choice. He stated he had offered to let her tone down Ginger's glamorous image for the reunions, but she still refused. He even offered her a significantly higher salary than the rest of the cast to entice her back. But her decision was never about the money. It was about her soul. The hidden truth was that her fight wasn't born of ego, but of desperation. The world saw a difficult, ungrateful star, but the reality was a terrified artist fighting a lonely battle against being completely erased by her own creation. Every time she refused to play Ginger, it was an assertion that Tina Louise, the serious actress from the Actors Studio, still existed. She was trapped in a paradox. The more famous Ginger became, the more invisible Tina felt. She believed that killing Ginger was the only way for her true self to survive. It was a war for her own artistic soul, and she was willing to burn every bridge to Hollywood to win it. She once famously said, "The best thing I can say about the show is that it gave a lot of people a lot of pleasure." It was a polite but telling admission. The pleasure was for others, not for her. The tragedy is that her victory would come at the cost of everything else, leaving her triumphant but utterly alone. Her decades-long war against Ginger Grant was a victory for her integrity, but it came at a devastating price, leading to professional exile, personal isolation, and a final, heartbreaking act of defiance. The fallout from her decision was immediate and brutal. The serious, dramatic film roles she had sacrificed everything for never materialized. Hollywood producers, it turned out, agreed with the public. They could no longer see Tina Louise, the versatile Golden Globe winner. They could only see Ginger Grant. She was relentlessly typecast, offered an endless parade of roles as vapid bombshells and shallow movie stars. She had successfully escaped the island, but she was now marooned in a professional purgatory, too famous to be cast as anyone else, and too proud to accept the roles that reinforced the stereotype she loathed. Her career, once so promising, withered into a string of forgettable B-movies and television guest spots. She worked steadily, appearing in the chilling 1975 thriller The Stepford Wives and on hit shows like Dallas, but the lead roles in prestigious character-driven dramas she had once been groomed for were now completely out of reach. The very fame she had sought as a tool for artistic freedom had become the bars of her prison. Her personal relationships with the cast frayed and then dissolved completely. For decades, her former castmates would publicly express their sadness and bewilderment over her self-imposed exile. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, once remarked that the cast always sent her an invitation to their get-togethers and reunions, but she never came. Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, often spoke of a deep love and respect for Tina, but admitted with a tone of regret that she was the one that got away. These public statements, almost always delivered with affection, had the unintended effect of cementing her image as the lone dissenter, the one who refused to be part of the family. The isolation wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. As her public career stalled, she retreated into a fiercely private life, focusing on her marriage to talk show host Les Crane and the birth of their daughter, Caprice. But that too ended in divorce, leaving her even more guarded. She was an outsider by her own design, a ghost at a family reunion she refused to attend. Faced with a legacy she couldn't erase, she tried to build a new one, far from the shadows of Hollywood. She moved back to New York and dedicated herself to a quiet, noble cause: childhood literacy. For years, she volunteered her time as a member of the nonprofit organization Learning Leaders, reading to students in public schools across the city. She found immense purpose in this work, a way to connect with the world on her own terms and make a tangible difference. She even authored 2 books. It was a selfless act to give back to her community and, perhaps, a desperate attempt to be seen as something more than a woman in a sequin dress. It was her attempt to write a final chapter for herself, one that had nothing to do with Ginger Grant. As the years passed, the other castaways left us one by one. The deaths of Bob Denver, Alan Hale Jr., and Dawn Wells were major cultural events, met with a massive shared outpouring of public grief. But Tina remains. Now, in her 90s, she is the last survivor of the original 7, living a quiet and fiercely private life in New York, far from the Hollywood glare. In rare interviews and sightings, she is thoughtful and reflective, but the wall of privacy she built decades ago remains firmly in place. She is a living legend, yet stands apart from the legacy and the family that millions still cherish, the final, solitary outcome of her lifelong choice. In the end, the story of The Last Castaway isn't about survival, but about the haunting price of a battle that was won, only to leave the victor completely alone. Tina Louise began her career as a serious artist, training alongside giants with a burning dream of achieving dramatic immortality. But she became a television icon in a role she grew to resent, and spent the next half-century fighting to reclaim the identity she felt it stole from her. In her relentless war against Ginger Grant, she protected her artistic integrity, but in doing so, she severed herself from the loving family the world adored, sentencing herself to a lifetime of professional and personal isolation. In the end, she successfully escaped the island, but she spent the rest of her life adrift, a solitary castaway in the real world. So, the final verdict on her legacy is left to you. Was Tina Louise a brilliant artist, sabotaged by a Hollywood system that punished her for wanting to be more than a caricature? Or was she a prisoner of her own pride, who chose a lonely war for her integrity over the joyful family the world wanted her to have? Tell us what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories you were never meant to see.